today, something that's coming to mind just as of a few minutes ago is maybe friendship. And this may or may not apply to all people, but it certainly should. There are people we are friends with, but maybe do not refer to them as friends. There are people that we're friends with that we probably shouldn't refer to as friends. But I've asked this question, now and again in classes or lectures or somewhere along the line. When you sit and think about how many friends you have, just tune into that for a moment. How many real friends do you have? Now, don't count family members, and don't count people that you think are your friends, but they don't think you're their friend. It has to be healthy, whole, reciprocal, really, really good friends. Now, Jesus has a very stringent definition of friendship. Someone who would give up their life for you. Well, for most of us, that would drop it down to 0, of course, because most people won't go that far for us. But forget the literal sense of give up your life. Let's look at the deeper, the more important metaphoric meaning. How many people do you know who would give up their ego, their need to be right, and so on for you? That's really amazing stuff. How many people would give up the need to be right in a discussion, an argument, or whatever it happens to be? And if you want it to spill over this conversation, that is, to family members, that too, But I remember one time, a very popular singer of a band and I were sitting and talking, and his phone rang, and he said, "Hold on a second," and he answered it, and I could tell it was something tense, so I left the room for a minute, and then I came back, and he seemed a little bummed, and I was going, "Everything okay?" And he said, "It's the strangest thing. Because this is not just a singer, this is a very deeply spiritual guy who's a popular singer." And he said, "As much as I devote my life to being a good person and spiritual and so on," he says, out of the blue, you can still get blindsided by these kinds of incidents where someone who you think is okay or you can trust just, blasts you with something. And I was just like, wow, I could really see not only the hurt, but the surprise. So, I didn't want to go too far because he didn't ask, this wasn't a counseling session. But, what I could say is just that, isn't it funny that this stuff happens, that no matter what we do, stuff like that will happen. And that will happen on earth. It'll happen with our closest relatives, our closest friends, and of course, strangers too, and so on. I believe that one of the real drags about communication and relationships, friendships, is when people refuse to talk, when they have a trigger or an issue and they're not open to talk about it. What that does is that creates a sort of a little mini version of hell within that person. And it's a drag because you see that, and maybe you didn't know that that's what you were seeing, but you were watching somebody descend into hell and you knew that something didn't feel right. We usually think it's because we personally would rather them not do that. We think it's because we're having a misunderstanding or we're having a loss of a friend. So we think that's what's bothering us, but it isn't. That is there, but on a deeper level, it's the hurt of realizing that people are dropping, they're descending into a dark place. They're assuming you said something when you didn't. You meant something that you didn't mean. You did something you didn't do, and so on. Just all these kinds of concepts. And one of my points is, I think to myself, we have enough misunderstandings on this planet of things that we did say or things that we did do. We don't need them also based on things we didn't say or didn't do. That's almost like making up stuff. Why would we want to live off of that? Now, I did a talk recently on the difference between ghosts and guidance, meaning, do you want to get guidance from ghosts or goblins? What I'm saying in part is we can get guidance from spirit, but we can also get guidance from assumptions, images, phantoms, things that aren't even there. And I mean that literally, but also figuratively. Why would we want to run? Why would we want our mind or heart and soul to think things and run on programs of things that aren't even real? But like with this person I'm talking about, they were kind of blasted out of the blue And that happens to us all. You can have friendships, and all of a sudden they just turn on a dime. You don't know why. I think one of my most stressful moments with a family member was, actually not having a great relationship with them. Unfortunately, it's the way they wanted to be, but all of a sudden things seemed okay. The first time, I believe it's the very first and only time I remember sitting down and having a quite a nice, like, I was shocked, like a decent conversation. And I was like thanking God, like, wow, that was so meaningful. Thank God, thank God, thank God. Where that ever came from, I don't know, don't care. I'm just giving thanks. And then just a short time later, the very next time I saw this family member, they were absolutely crazy, upset, yelling, reacting, blasting, accusing. And I was like, as you can imagine, because I know everybody's had this happen at least once, just like, what, speechless at first. Then trying to figure out, where's this coming from? What is this about? You know what it is. And I'm like, honestly, I was like, I have no idea. Didn't help. So there's sort of a saying, to just paraphrase it one way or the other, and that is, when people are hell-bent on being a certain way, reactive, angry, sad, depressed sometimes, but when people are just hell-bent on being in that state of mind, being angry, being judgmental, or gossiping, when people want to be hateful, is another way of saying it in a sentence. When people want to be hateful, sometimes there's no way of talking them out of it. So if you've lost friends because of things you have done, it's good to make amends, to apologize and make amends as tactfully as you can, as heartfelt as you can, without making excuses and so forth. Because if you've messed up or done something, it's good to just say, oops, they don't need excuses. Just, I remember this happened and I just want to apologize. And if you really know that you were off at the time, in 12-step groups, they might tell you to say something like, I was being thoughtless or selfish. And that is very vulnerable. But if it's appropriate, you never should apologize if in fact, or even make amends if in fact it somehow could cause more harm. Like if my apology to you would actually emblaze, your fire, your anger, your ego, and it would cause you to do even more harm, hate me even more, hate others even more. Even though I'm not supposed to be attached to the outcome, I am going to be somewhat conscientious about it and think, it's better that you just dislike me, because when you get to the other side, someone over there is going to explain it to you. It's better that you just dislike me and I can take the hit. I can go without the friendship. Then to try to make it up or make amends or apologize if in fact that's going to make you blasted in a way that'll hurt even more people or tempt even more people to buy into your hatred of me or something. So think about that option. If in fact you have done something, just consider making amends, especially if you've lost friendships. I'm not saying you need to try to overly appease people. I'm saying if you've done something, friendship or not, just if you've hurt somebody, then do that. But if you haven't, sometimes if you just obsess on it or think about it or depress around it, that's not actually helpful. So what I do is sometimes I think it's better to just put it out there and say, hey, listen, something happened, and even if you do believe you did not do anything, you can say, something happened and I'm not sure really what it was about, but I'm sure that if I've upset you in any way, I want to apologize. Even if you don't believe you did anything, it doesn't hurt to say, if I did, I apologize. But you put it out there and you can say, wow, sorry about this or that, and if there's anything I can do, let me know. If not, I'll take your response as a no, and I'll understand. And so I'll bid you farewell. Say it tactfully. This could be family members too. Say it tactfully. But my point of what I'm saying is, in this part of what I'm saying is, sometimes it's better to know than to not know. Sometimes it's better to just be able to know that they're not interested. Whether this is somebody you're interested in dating and you don't know and you let that go for years, procrastinating, whether it's because you're nervous or just don't get around to it. Even if it's starting a project, you procrastinate, you wait so long, the energy dies. I would rather not have that energy leaking forever, I had it happen once, at least once in my life, where not the type of person to like pursue others, dating, that kind of thing. I just never really had the interest or the time, and I was always a bit shy, so I never really did that. But there was one person, a really nice person, and they expressed interest here and there, and I was busy and didn't have time, and this was a period of after marriage, and so I didn't quite know what I was going to do. And finally, I don't know how much, I must have been a year of this person pursuing, I finally called them back or something. And it was somebody else that answered, some other friend of theirs or something. And I asked for them, they said, no, they're out, And I said, oh, okay. And they said, I felt so bad for them. They felt so sorry for me, They kind of went, Michael, you just waited too long. And I could just tell they were even sad for me, and sad for their friend that didn't get a chance. So it was just so awkward, but I completely have to own it. That was completely my procrastination or shyness or whatever. And it's better to just accept what is. So, if we've made mistakes like that, we just have to let them go. But if you don't know, it's better to make that call or write that email or whatever. Find out if something is salvageable. If you can, tactfully do so. Find out if it's salvageable, friendships and all that. I will say this, do not get heartbroken if you find that they're not salvageable, because generally speaking, I would say 90-something% of the time, when it seems like it's done, it's done. And so the purpose of a last attempt is be ready for a goodbye, a loving, wow, I'm so sorry about that, but I really appreciate, having known you and hung out with you, and maybe it'll change someday, See, I won't say, I'll try you again later, when in fact, if I know I won't, or you shouldn't say that to me if you don't think you will, because what that does is it creates another chord between us. It's better to just say, maybe someday, because that's all, and I wish you the best, because that's true. I do wish you the best. But most of the time when they're over because people just simply don't allow themselves to have those kinds of clean, endings. And so they want to kind of pretend that there's a chance still. And that's really unhealthy. So I would really bid you all, try to find a way to bring closure and watch, because, it's best if you do that. But watch, because don't expect that it's going to be yes. 90% of the time, it's just kind of done. So lovingly draw it to an end, and know that this is really important, that sometimes when these things are coming to an end, people will have to make up stuff to justify the ending. That's true with partnerships and all kinds of things. They have to think, well, I feel bad that this is ending, or I feel bad that something's not working. So they have to conjure up something to dislike you, or magnify it, blow it out of proportion, just so they feel better about walking away. See, I personally would never want to do that. If I feel like it's an ending, I'm just going to talk to you about it and say, is something going on? And usually I would get no for X amount of time, and they gradually will start realizing that something isn't right for them. Often it's they want something from me that I cannot give, will not give, and that's bothering them. And so it's brewing, and it becomes an awkwardness that has to eventually be seen. But instead of it getting all weird, if people could know what's really triggering them or what's triggered inside, they could be more honest and say, wow, let me just ask, I was wanting more from you as a friend, or I was wanting to see you more often, or I was wanting to know if you would do business with me, or whatever it is that people would like to do. It's better that we or they ask and say, I was kind of wanting this, but I'm sensing that's not there. It's sad when they say no, of course, when it seems like rejection. But what we do is we actually allow ourselves to be strung along and let the pain build, and then the moment of a big dramatic ending, all because we weren't willing to just face that, hey, maybe I should just ask. Please remember, just ask. Put it out there, Better that than not knowing. The old metaphor of unfortunate families whose loved ones have gone off to war, how many times have we all heard them say, if we just knew, You know, it's not knowing that's the most painful thing, and that's true with lost loved ones, kidnapped people, and just missing persons, not knowing. And that's true for all of us, and including relationships. So turning this a different direction, the greatest friendships are holistic, spiritual friendships, spiritually based. As soon as you start going with other priorities, romance, agendas, codependence, or whatever other agendas might leak into, even just projecting unhealed wounds onto friends, you're in trouble. Try to find a way to spiritualize your friendships first. Make spiritual and make holistic. Go to friendships from a place that is as honest as possible, responsible as possible. And when you do strike up new friendships, or even if you have old friendships, go back and talk to them and say, hey, listen, it feels like we're developing a friendship, and I just want you to know, or if we already have one, I just want you to know, I'm finding it so important to be able to talk, to be able to ask questions, to be able to this and that and the other. Let them know where you're coming from. Just like with partnerships and romantic partnerships, we should kind of let them know where we're coming from. I really like transparency. I really prefer this and that. That way, if ever it goes another direction and it gets weird, you can say, remember, this is what I said in the first place. They can never really hold that against you because you were honest and that was the original rules. Still, they will make stuff up and get irritated because people do when endings come. It just happens. But we can cut down on it. Part of what I've been sharing here is that we have enough problems on earth, let alone starting to manufacture them and have phantoms of issues that aren't even there made into something as though it is there. We don't need to be afraid of the boogeyman under the bed when there is none, and we don't need to let issues haunt us in relationships, friendships that aren't there. Instead, just do your best to nurture the healthiest relationships, friendships you can. I've had times when I've had only a couple, almost like none at all, friendships, because maybe I was parenting and all that for a while, and less friendships during that, to some degree. There were other times when I had a couple of really close friendships. Many years ago, a couple, and it was like really good because I could see that it was an experiment to come out years ago from marriage and also come out from just teaching and try out, a couple of friendships. And it was absolutely beautiful, valuable. I would do it again. Even though those change eventually, I would still do it again, and I would recommend it to anybody because the love at the time was really, really beautiful. We sometimes end up shaming things that we've done as though it needs to be completely obliterated because it didn't end well. But if it really was nice or good or healthy at the time, we shouldn't do that, even though there's a time for that, a little bit of that, calling it for what it really was, because if it wasn't healthy, we need to call it for what it was. But I really believe in the honoring of things that were there and not letting the ego mind leak into me and cause me to judge and destroy, because that's way too human. That's just way too typical human, and I'm not into that. So I recommend that you try these things, and I've done that, and I've had a couple of close friends, and and I just think that was great because they symbolize my ability to be coming out and feel good enough to share more personal things with friends, things I only shared maybe with a wife at one time or a partner or something. I was able to share that with just people, just friends, equals as it were. And that turns because eventually they want things I'm not able to offer, and that's the way it is, or things like that happen or whatever happens. And then I've had times like now, like where I have close friends, but also more and more people, the masses, as it were, for a lack of a better word, because it's at Unity of Sedona or on tours. There are people that I've met on tours that are just beautiful souls. And they've become a symbol of friends. I may not spend all the time with them as I would a really, really close friend as I once did. But instead of a few quality ones, it's like I now have also dozens of lesser intense, lesser quality, lesser close, but more of them. So I'm just saying that there's different kinds, different levels of friendships, and I just love them and I embrace them all, and I recommend you try that out. If you know of no one, then you could even use, say for example, I have the Friends of Michael Mirdad Facebook page. If you decide to get on there It's not for everybody. We're not looking for, just anybody, and you shouldn't be looking for just anybody to sign on to. But we have a site like that. Or if there's another one you know of, you could say to the people, I actually don't have a lot of friends, so I would like to reach out and just say, can I sort of think of you folks as friends? Now, obviously, it would be creepy if you thought we were actually deep, deep quality friends when we're just on the internet. By creepy, what I mean is it's not as real as it could be. So we don't want you to fool yourself or think of us as like ultra close. What I want you to do is, if you have none, and I'm saying, and you don't know who to reach out to, try someone. Now, I would have said a counselor, but counselors usually will put the kibosh on that and say, I will not be referred to as a friend. I'm not allowed to be. So I'm saying find someone somewhere. So who? Spiritual centers are a good place to start acquaintances and let the acquaintances grow into friendships, but let people know. Would you mind, I don't know a lot of folks, would you mind if I think of you as a friend? It's a strange question to ask in some ways, but I think it's vulnerable and beautiful. If they say no, take the hit. Cry if you have to, but no, it's just an experiment. It's a dry run, that's all. It's a dress rehearsal. Now try another one at some point. But if you go to us, to me, Facebook, Friends of Michael Mirdad Facebook page, you could say, hey guys, if you had no one else, hey guys, would you mind? Because I could do that. I could say, and I've done that. I've said to Unity attendees, and I've said, on Facebook, you are like a family to me. You are like friends, even though I've never met and will never meet some of you. Some of you may not even like me. But I still could say to the group, hey guys, do you mind if I think of you as almost like a family? And generally the folks are going to say absolutely. And we would say the same to you if you have nothing else. Don't leave this life thinking you don't have friends. It's not only not true, it's not necessary, it's unhealthy. At least if you were to pass away tomorrow and you've accomplished this, you could say, I reached out, I asked, and some people said yes. Wow, what a beautiful incident. What a beautiful thing. A closure to the question of whether I'm lovable enough to be a friend to people. Another point to remember, as Edgar Cayce once put it, if you want good friends, then learn to be a good friend. That's a tricky one, because I know people that have said, tears in their eyes, I'm the best friend to anybody, but nobody's good to me. Be careful, because sometimes the ego will come in and try to make us feel like victims. That is a drag when that happens, I understand, but be careful not to overly magnify it. Just try to get the lesson from it and move forward. But if you do want to have good friends, be a good friend. It means try to know what very things you're looking for, and then do those things. Try to have integrity. Try not to gossip. Try not to assume the worst. If you want to be a good friend, to me or anybody healthy, assume the best and ask. Anytime there's a question, ask instead of assuming. When you don't ask, it's because you don't want the answer, because you want to stay ticked off, judgmental, and gossipy. I've had people that said they were friends that did that. They don't want to ask because they want to be in the pit that they're in. When a person is committed, absolutely committed to being in hell, that's where they're going to be, and you can't get them out of it. When they're committed to hating you, judging you, whatever, that's where they're going to be. So don't take it on that you have to somehow save them, as it were. If you want to do any saving, do it in your own mind. Simply love and forgive them, and receive in your mind their forgiveness for anything that might have been off. And let it be a blessed, holy relationship within your own being. One of the authors and editors of A Course in Miracles, a gentleman, he passed away years ago in the 80s. And when he passed away, his last words were, all of my relationships are holy. So just soak that in for a sec. I've talked about these kinds of things in my relationships books and lectures. Holy relationships mean healthy, interdependent, instead of conditional and codependent and so on. We want healthy relationships. So think about this. All of my relationships are holy. Can you say that? And if you can't, chances are most people can't, but what does it mean? That you have to track down every human being on the planet and create one? No, not at all. It's, are you willing to unplug all of the attachments the needs, the judgments and stuff off of others? Are you willing to unplug it and then unplug the ones they had in you out? Unplug those too. Cut all the cords and just remain in a state of this. I refuse to hate anyone. Some of you have heard me say this, but I refuse to hate anyone. And I'm willing to look at my part in any situation or relationship, and I affirm that everyone has a spark of God or love inside themselves, and I love that love inside of you. That's all you have to be willing to do. Not, I love your creepiness, I love your aggressiveness, your abusiveness. It's, I love that somewhere there's a light, and wherever that is, I love that light. So a holy relationship simply means that I'm consciously saying, God, I know not how to see this person, this friend, partner, family member, whomever. I know not how to see them. Show me how to see them through your eyes. Because seeing them, even when I do my best to see them well, I still get tempted to trip and I get hurt and so on. So help me to see them through your eyes. I'm looking for a holy relationship, and I'm asking you to help me with that. So let God be part of that and just make healthy choices along the way. I pray this has all made sense, and I very much appreciate every time we can share these moments with each other. I really do. Thanks for being friends, and I hope I'm a good friend to all of you. Peace be with you. Bye-bye.